In this video, I develop a leak.
Sure, what happened there?
I tried doing things a different way,
Pushed against the flange. Don't tell the missus.
and I struggled to get my pipe out.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. Since the last video, I've had a couple of attempts at making other videos putting the engine back together, the timing gear, the exhaust and inlet manifold, the rocker cover, and I've either come across problems where I haven't got a part or I've got the wrong part and it doesn't fit. So while I'm waiting for bits and bobs to arrive for that, I'm going to look at something else in the engine bay that needs doing, specifically the fuel lines. On this, they're quite badly corroded, and the part to buy new is quite expensive in the whole context of the car. So went on eBay, got a second-hand part for not that much money really, about £30, and it isn't in perfect condition, but it is in better condition than the one that's on here. I've since, with some Scotch-Brite, removed any light corrosion that was on the second-hand part, and I've treated it with a rust inhibitor and given it a light coat of matte black spray just to give it a bit more resilience. So I've done that already. In here, it should be a simple job of taking off this cover here, which is to the fuel pump. There are then 3 lines that come out from there, fuel lines. You've got a return line, a feed line, and I don't know what line. You've then got a breather hose and then a filler pipe that will need disconnecting just so you can get it out. Need to be careful when we do that because fumes, vapours, explosive atmospheres and that sort of thing. And then there's a couple of connections a bit further around where they feed into like flexible hoses. So it should be relatively straightforward. So underneath this plate here is the fuel pump, and the fuel lines feed into here, so I need to disconnect them from there. So I'm going to work my way from this side back. I'm going to use a 10mm, these are 10mm bolts, so there's 4 of them. I'm going to use a 10mm spanner. To make things easier, I'm using one with a ratchet flexible end. So this is a little bit stuck on, so I'm just going to try and pry it off with a screwdriver. Right, so with the cover off we can see the fuel pump and where the various pipes and bits and bobs feed into it. So before you go any further, make sure the battery is disconnected. You don't want any sparks, because when you're taking these connections off, there's a good chance you're going to get vapours and things like that, and you don't want to ignite them. If you have one as well, it's a good idea to keep a fire extinguisher close to hand, just in case. So this, I believe, is the breather hose that goes from here up to the petrol filler cap. So we're going to disconnect this first. Okay, so in hindsight, I've started to disconnect the breather hose from the fuel pump. Now, what I'm finding is that there's resistance when I'm trying to pull it off this way, and what I think is happening is that it's being kept in place by all the other connections and the shroud that's holding them in the bulkhead, so it's not allowing it to come this way. Now, it may have been easier to undo the breather hose from nearer the fuel filler cap. But we've started now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and unclip the fuel lines from their mountings. Hopefully that should allow that to come this way and we can take that off. Okay, there's a lot of fuel coming out of the green one. happened there. But as I undid the green line, quite a lot of fuel was coming out, not from the line, but from the fuel pump. So I do wonder if it's under a little bit of pressure. So there's definitely a bit of pressure there. Whether that's normal, not too sure. There might be a breather hose blocked and all. Let's see if it's made any difference. Yeah, nothing coming out. So before you take off that green one, make sure you open your fuel filler cap just to make sure it's not under pressure. Live and learn. So with these two lines removed, this one almost off, there's just one more just here, and there's a button on the top and underneath, and you just pinch and pull. Pinch and pull. So now it's a case of popping this back through. Oh, so struggling to get the fuel lines out. I've undone the Jubilee clip around the fuel pipe, rubber hosey bit down here, but that's not moving because there's just not enough play to get that out. So what I'm going to try and do is undo the fuel filler pipe from the filler cap. So inside here there's two bolts. They are 7mm. But before I undo them, I'm just going to stuff a couple of nitrile gloves in there to stop anything foreign getting in there. So with the fuel pipe loose, it does give a bit more wiggle room inside, and as you're moving it forwards and backwards and pulling it at the same time, it is starting to come away from the flexible hose. So I'm hoping with a bit more encouragement it will go free. Right, so we've managed to get that out. There's a lot more access in here now. So I'm going to put a glove over this just to stop anything going down there. And it's amazing how much insight it gives you, because that down there is a hole underneath the car. There's lots of bodywork to be done coming up. Yay! I'm speaking to you now many hours later. I've really been struggling with this one. Managed to get a couple of the fuel lines out, but there was one I couldn't, and because there's a connection like this down here that comes onto one of the most corroded lines there is. I think it's the return line. And all the metal around here is rusty and horrible, so this won't press in very easily. Access is really difficult as well. So I struggled to get the other two out, which have come out, and it wasn't until the missus came along and said, why don't you just open the boot and go in from there? So with the boot open, you get better access in down here, so you can actually get two hands on it, or better access anyway. So as the connection comes this way, I've got a 13mm spanner, put it over the pipe, pushed against the flange of whatever the hell that's called, and then pulled them apart, and it did actually come free. So you can get your heads down there. Don't tell the missus. Right, so this was the last fuel line that I took out, and you can just see how badly corroded this is. Definitely an MOT failure for sure. I mean, the last thing you want is fuel spilling all over a hot engine or hot components. It's going to be an inferno. So that's finally off, last one. And this is what's going back on. Treated, sprayed, much better.
So with the second-hand fuel lines ready to be put back into the car, I'm going to start and feed these in. Now it did come with two clips. Now I've got these already in the car still attached to the chassis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop these off and then feed them into the existing ones, just because it's going to save me a bit of heartache really. Right, so I've had a couple of goes at this, and I think I've found it's not a perfect way, but it seems to be able to go in without bending all of this too much. So when I took this pipe off originally, I did take off the green end. Now, as I was trying to feed this back in, I don't think it's going to go on with the green end on, so I've taken that back off. But what I'm going to be doing is the right-hand side, as you look down on this and the car, I'm going to feed that down first, and having disconnected one of the sensors and loosened off what I've taken out of its mounting, the ABS sensor, you can then feed that underneath the wires. So with this sensor disconnected, this ABS lead isn't disconnected, but it is out of its sort of mounting clamp, so it gives you a bit more flexibility to feed the pipes underneath. So with the lines fed in, it's now a case of just connecting them all back up to the fuel pump. I'm going to begin and connect up the farthest away connector, so this one to this one first. So with the lines clipped back in place just here and down there as well, I'm now going to put the fuel filler pipe and breather hose back in, and then connect the rest of the bits and bobs up in there. So now I've got the filler pipe in and tighten it down with the 7mm socket, and now it's loose on the outside, but I just need to connect the breather hose, which goes from here through the firewall onto the pump. So that was ranked #1 most fiddliest, crappiest job I've done on the car so far. But it needed doing, and I'm glad I did it. If you are going to have a go at that, the fuel lines, you'll need a lot of patience and a lot of care. Don't rush anything. I'm going to leave the fuel pump cover off, because when I start the car for the first time, when that comes round, I want to make sure that none of the connections are leaking. The engine's pretty much done. I have started filming the video putting the engine back together. The exhaust manifold's on, the cam rear cover is on, and the timing belt's in position. I just need to put I'm waiting for a gasket for the inlet manifold, and I'm waiting for a bolt for the tensioner, and then the cam gears can go back on. Then that's pretty much the engine done, apart from fluids going in, spark plugs going on, that sort of thing. There is one other thing though. Just down here, where in an earlier video when I started taking hoses and things apart, one of the coolant T-pieces snapped on one side. So I need to replace that and a couple of the hoses around it. They're in bad shape. Yeah, so I need to replace this T-piece here and the coolant connecting flexible hoses pipey bits either side, along with the clips and whatnot. This was, I don't know if it's an expansion breather hose, but it was connected onto there, and that just snapped clean off. So I need to try and get that plastic bit out of there. If I can't, then it's a new hose. Replace these two bits as well, so that will be in a future video. Well, that was much more difficult than I was expecting it to be. It was just really fiddly. Really difficult to film. I am sorry about the filming in this one. I just couldn't get the camera in, and where I could get the camera in, I was trying to hold the camera with one hand and do things with the other, and I really did struggle, so I apologise for that. But hopefully, other than the video that's coming putting the engine back together, I'm just waiting on some parts, an upcoming video should be taking off the bumper. It's the first step in what will be the series of future videos. in where we're dropping the subframe and treating and dealing with all the problems surrounding that. So fingers crossed that all goes well. So thanks very much. See you in the next one.